The dining room fell into a sudden, suffocating hush the instant she rose to her feet. My mother-in-law wavered on unsteady legs, the stem of her wine glass quivering between her fingers, her gaze clouded with that raw, unguarded honesty that only surfaces when guilt has finally grown too massive to carry in silence any longer. "For 21 years," she slurred, barely above a whisper, "we've raised our glasses to nothing but lies." My fork hovered motionless in midair, inches from my lips. Then her eyes locked onto mine, not her daughter's, not any of the other guests, only mine, and the words came out like confession long overdue. "The boy you called your son all this time, he isn't yours." The noise that followed wasn't a collective gasp. It was something heavier, a kind of structural failure, the sound of an entire evening, and perhaps an entire family, coming undone. My wife's face turned the color of ash. Her mouth opened, but nothing emerged. Our son, seated 3 chairs down, went rigid, every muscle locked as though the world had just pressed pause on him alone. Inside my chest, my heart delivered one deep, deliberate thud, and after that, an eerie stillness settled over everything else. "Mom," my wife breathed, the words splintering. "Please, not like this." Her mother paid no attention whatsoever. "You should have told him long ago," she continued, voice thick with alcohol and something close to relief. "He had a right to know." My wife's hand shot toward my forearm in desperation. "Ethan, please." I eased my arm free with careful, deliberate slowness. "Hello, everyone," I said, tone level, almost formal. "My name is Ethan Cole." In that precise instant, it crystallized for me. The previous 2 decades of my existence had followed someone else's screenplay, one I had never auditioned for, never signed off on. I didn't shout. I didn't rise abruptly. I didn't shatter a single piece of crystal. Instead, I simply swept my gaze across every face that had sat at holiday tables with me, exchanged smiles with me, opened Christmas presents I had wrapped, and I saw fear staring back, because every single one of them had known. What I chose to do next would determine precisely how much they were all about to forfeit, and they were going to forfeit everything. The atmosphere in the room thickened until it felt like trying to inhale through wet cloth. No one stirred. No one dared draw a full breath. My wife kept murmuring my name over and over, as though repeating it might somehow form a barrier between her and the avalanche already in motion. "Ethan, please listen to me." But all I could hear was a quiet clatter of 21 years' worth of memories reshuffling themselves into an entirely different order. 21 years. 21 years filled with birthday candles, parent-teacher conferences, playground falls that needed Band-Aids, midnight temperatures that refused a break, first bikes, first heartbreaks, late-night talks about nothing and everything. Moments I had honestly believed were mine to claim. My mother-in-law sank back into her seat, the guilt pouring out of her now as freely as the red wine that stained the tablecloth beneath her glass. "He deserved the truth," she repeated, softer, almost pleading with herself more than anyone else. My wife lunged, seizing her mother's wrist. "Stop. Just stop talking." I lifted one hand. She went motionless. For the first time in our entire marriage, the look in her eyes held neither affection, nor fury, nor bewilderment. Only terror. I turned toward our son. He was watching me with enormous, stricken eyes, comprehending only pieces, but understanding enough to feel the ground shift beneath him. The betrayal had never belonged to him, and it never would. I gave him a small, steady nod. "It's okay. None of this is on you." My wife was shaking now. "Ethan, I was frightened. I was so young. I didn't know how to say the words. Please." "You knew," I answered, voice quiet but unmistakable. "You all knew." Her parents refused to meet my gaze. Across the table, her brother shifted in his chair, discomfort radiating from him in waves. Guilt written so plainly it might as well have been a confession of its own. So it hadn't been a solitary deception after all. It had been a family enterprise. I rose slowly, folded my napkin, and set it beside my plate with precision. "What are you doing?" my wife whispered. I looked directly into her eyes. "Beginning phase 1. Her expression fractured because the phrase carried no meaning to her yet, but she understood instantly that it carried no mercy either. I kept my volume low. I touched nothing. I didn't stride out in fury. Instead, I crossed the kitchen counter where my jacket had been draped all evening, reached into the inner pocket, and withdrew the slim folder no one else in the room had known existed. My wife's eyes widened to the point of pain. "Ethan, what is that?" I placed the folder on the table with calm finality. Her father swallowed audibly. "Son, let's not make this worse." I silenced him with nothing more than a glance. Inside that folder rested the quiet answers I collected over years, never in rage, never in accusation, only in the patient accumulation of facts when tiny inconsistencies began to accumulate. Not proof of an affair in the classic sense, just small misalignments, timelines that refused to line up, reactions that felt rehearsed rather than spontaneous. I had never thrown them in her face. I had simply observed, because I had wanted, truly wanted, to believe the life we had built together was real. I believed in the marriage. I believed in her. But I also believed in evidence. I drew out the first sheet and slid it toward the center of the table, a formal paternity test requisition I had submitted in secret when our son was 9 years old. Not because I questioned the boy, because I had begun to question her. My wife's inhale was sharp enough to cut. You tested him." "No," I replied evenly. "I attempted to, but someone claiming to be me, phoned the clinic and canceled the appointment before the sample could be collected." My mother-in-law's hand flew to her lips. Her brother stared fixedly at the grain of the wood beneath his forearms. I went on without raising my voice. I let it go. I convinced myself the doubts were mine alone, that I was being unfair, that you loved me far too much to build our life on something so fundamental and false. Tears carved tracks down her cheeks. "Ethan, please." I leaned forward slightly. "You preferred to let me question my own sanity rather than speak the truth aloud." Her voice fractured. "I always meant to tell you. Someday, when the time felt right." "No," I said gently. "You intended to carry the secret to your grave." Then I removed the second envelope, thicker, still sealed, and set it beside the first. Her face went bloodless the moment she recognized the weight and shape of it. "What is that?" her father murmured, voice hoarse. I tapped the envelope once. Phase 2. The table turned to stone because they finally grasped that I had not arrived tonight empty-handed or surprised. My wife stared at the sealed packet as though it were a grenade with a pin already pulled. Her breathing grew shallow and rapid. The rest of the room held its collective breath. "Ethan," she whispered, "don't open it. Please." I remained standing. I didn't flinch. I pushed the envelope closer to her. "You know exactly what's inside. Tell them." She shook her head frantically. "No. Please. No." Her brother's voice cracked. "What's in there?" I answered for her. Evidence that I wasn't the only person she deceived. My mother-in-law began to weep quietly, forehead cradled in her palms. Her father regarded his own daughter as though meeting a stranger he did not care for. I broke the seal. The contents were 21 years of financial breadcrumbs, concealed transfers, modest but consistent withdrawals, every one clustered around a single, telling period, the week our son was conceived. I laid the statements before her. "You withdrew money from our joint accounts," I said without heat. "You used it to pay him." Her entire face seemed to cave inward. "Ethan, I swear, it happened only once." I panicked. I didn't know what else to do. "You paid the biological father," I restated calmly, "and you have continued paying him every year since." Her father whispered, horrified, "Is this true?" Her silence was louder than any denial. She pressed trembling fingers over her mouth. "Ethan," she managed, "I was barely more than a child myself. I was terrified you'd walk away." I leaned in again, tone still measured. "You didn't lie to preserve our family. You lied to preserve your version of comfort." She sagged backward, body trembling uncontrollably. But I had one more page left. I placed it on top of the others. A single legal notice, time-stamped, signed by me. Her eyes ballooned with pure dread because this paper did not describe what had already happened. It described what was coming. She reached for it with shaking fingers. I covered it with my palm, not to prevent her from seeing, but to ensure she felt the weight of the moment belonged to me. "What is that?" she asked, voice barely audible. Everyone leaned forward involuntarily. Even the silence seemed to lean in. I slid the document toward her. This is the date I retained private counsel. 3 months ago. Her head snapped up. 3 months? But you didn't suspect anything 3 months ago. You're incorrect, I said. 3 months ago, I noticed a notification on your phone. A scheduled payment alert from an unnamed number. Her complexion turned ghostly. I traced the number. I continued. It did not belong to a creditor, a relative, or a colleague. I tapped the legal page once more. It belonged to him, the biological father. Her brother exhaled. My God. My attorney recommended discretion, I said. Gather documentation silently. Avoid confrontation. So that is precisely what I did. I gestured toward the entire collection of papers. While you continued the payments, while you maintained the facade, while you assumed everything remained safely hidden, I was building a record. Her hands shook so violently now the table trembled faintly beneath them. Ethan, please don't do this. Don't tear our family apart. I regarded her with a composure she clearly had not anticipated. You dismantled this family 21 years ago. I am merely naming what remains. Then I lifted the final sheet, the one bearing the bold, unmistakable heading she had not yet seen in full. Her eyes raced across the text, widening with each word. The heading read, Petition for Dissolution of Marriage, Request for Financial Recompense, and Reassessment of Custodial Arrangement. She stared up at me, stunned into speechlessness for a heartbeat. Ethan, no. Please. Not like this. We can repair this. We can. There is no we left to repair, I told her quietly. There never truly was. There was only the narrative you constructed and the part you assigned me to play. Her father shook his head in slow disbelief. You orchestrated all of this. No, I answered. I orchestrated my way out. My wife attempted to stand. Her knees gave way almost. Immediately, she clutched the table edge to keep from falling. Ethan, I was young. I was scared out of my mind. Please, just hear me. I listened. I said, for 21 years I listened to every lie you dressed up as love. The room remained utterly still. I set down the next thick packet of notarized records. These, I explained, are the complete logs, transfers, text message screenshots, bank statements, proof of annual payments to him every year since our son came into the world. My mother-in-law gasped. Her brother shut his eyes tightly. My wife covered her mouth, shoulders heaving with silent sobs. I never wanted any of this, she choked out. He threatened to tell everyone. I thought, if I kept sending the money, he would eventually vanish. I raised a hand to stop her. That is precisely the tragedy, I said. You never trusted me enough to tell the truth. Instead, you trusted a man who had already betrayed you once. She fell back into the chair as though all strength had been siphoned from her. I stepped closer, not in menace, but in absolute clarity. You didn't merely steal 21 years from me. I told her. You stole my right to choose my own path, and now I am taking that choice back. Her breath shuddered. What are you going to do? I lifted the final page of the packet, the one bearing tomorrow's date. Tomorrow morning, I said, these documents will be filed. Her whole body convulsed, but she still had no idea the deepest wound was yet to come. The true detonation waited inside the final small envelope still resting in my pocket. Every pair of eyes remained riveted on me, yet their collective gaze felt trivial compared to the single sheet of certified paper I now withdrew. My wife saw the envelope and went rigid. No, she breathed. Ethan, what else is in there? What else did you do? I did not respond at once. Instead, I looked at our son, the child I had raised, shielded, taught, loved without reservation. His eyes shimmered with fear. Not fear of me, but fear of losing the only father he had ever known. I knelt beside his chair. Look at me, I said softly. None of this belongs to you. You are innocent in every part of it. And no matter what else happens tonight, you will always be my son in every way that counts. That will never change. Tears spilled freely down his cheeks as he nodded. Then I rose and faced a woman whose deception had held this entire evening and this entire family hostage for 2 decades. You weren't the only one keeping secrets, I told her. Her breath caught audibly. Ethan, please don't. I opened the final envelope. Inside lay a certified laboratory report dated last month. Her legs gave out completely. You actually tested him. I nodded once, after I discovered continuing payments to the other man. Yes, I did. The room seemed to stop breathing entirely. My wife dissolved into wrenching sobs. Please don't say it. Don't. But I did not pass the document to her. I handed it directly to our son. He opened it with unsteady fingers, eyes scanning line after line. His lips parted in astonishment. He looked up at me, voice small and trembling. Dad, it says, you're still? I gave him one firm nod. I am your biological father. The room exploded into sound. Gasps, cries, stunned exclamations, raw disbelief. My wife crumpled entirely. Because the very last lie she had clung to, the one she had used to rationalize every other deception, had just been annihilated in front of everyone. And still I was not finished. I turned back to her, voice now carrying the cold precision of finality. Tomorrow, when I file for dissolution, I will also petition for full physical and legal custody. Her scream tore through the room like breaking glass. But the reckoning had not yet reached its end. Phase 3 was only beginning. Her scream reverberated off the walls, primal and broken, the sound of someone witnessing the complete implosion of the reality they had spent 2 decades constructing. You cannot take him away from me, she wailed, stretching desperate hands toward our son. He recoiled, not toward me, not toward her parents, simply away from the woman who had spent 21 years weaving a web of Fawcett around him. I positioned myself between them. You did not lose him tonight, I said. You lost him the instant you chose deception over honesty. Her father scrubbed at his face with trembling hands. Ethan, we never intended for any of this. I met his gaze directly. Then you should have spoken the truth 21 years ago. Silence swallowed the room once more. I gathered every document, returned them neatly to the folder, and fastened my jacket. No raised voice, no dramatic flourish. Only the calm, irreversible certainty of a man who had finally reclaimed ownership of his own story. My wife crawled forward on her knees, clutching the fabric of my trousers. Ethan, please, don't file. Don't take my son. I'll do anything at all. Just don't destroy everything. I stepped back. Her fingers slipped away. There is no everything left to destroy, I told her quietly. There never was an us. There was only the fiction you wrote, and the supporting cast you persuaded to play along. I turned to our son. Are you ready to leave? He wiped his cheeks and nodded. As we moved toward the door, I paused, glancing back one final time. Her family sat frozen, shamefaced, hollowed out, utterly exposed. My wife remained on the floor, face buried in her hands, body racked with sobs. And in that moment I felt something unexpected wash over me. Not rage, not victory, not vengeance. Simply closure, a clean break after 21 years of living inside someone else's invention. I opened the door, rested my hand lightly on my son's shoulder, and spoke the last truth she had never prepared herself to hear. You didn't merely lose a marriage tonight, I said. You lost your control. Then I stepped through the doorway with my son beside me, closed the door behind us, and never looked back.